Hello and guten Tag from Cologne, Germany. Welcome back to the channel. This reaction video is a very special one because I'm really into that topic. It's about Cologne at the end of the Second World War in March 1945 and how the American Spearhead Division came from the west and conquered the city, occupied the city at the end, and having some serious tank duel on the route through the city. And there exist so many original film footage on YouTube because the Spearhead Division had some cameraman with them, and they recorded much film footage that you can watch on YouTube. It's really amazing to watch. And here's a special video that I'm gonna react to, but it's far away from a first reaction because I watched these videos plenty of time and I've read much about this time, so I'm really into the history of my hometown Cologne, and especially during the Second World War. And this video here is really a good one, a really interesting one, because it has a commentary. I don't know how to say it. Commentary. It's made by a war channel called Battle Guide, and they have many videos with commentary on original war footage. It's really interesting, and so this video is for you when you are into the history of the Second World War, because this video is really amazing, especially for me as somebody from Cologne and who was born in that city, to watch original film material from the Second World War. It's amazing to watch because some of the streets I can easily recognize, of course, and it's amazing to see your own city many years ago, and especially doing this at the end of the Second World War, because the whole city of Cologne was destroyed. The city center was destroyed for 90%, and surrounding districts maybe for about 70%. And so let's watch it together.
American tanks from the famous 3rd Armored Division fought their way into the heart of the German city of Cologne, desperately trying to repel the American advance and hold the vital bridge over the River Rhine were the last few tanks of the once formidable 106th Panzer Brigade. What followed was a unique chapter in the Second World War, captured in real time by combat cameramen on the ground. In this video, we'll use the latest technology and wartime footage to follow the epic action that is today known as the Cologne Tank Duel. By March 1945, the Western Front looked something like this, with the Germans being pushed back towards the mighty Rhine all along the front, including just here in Cologne. Shattered by Allied bombers, it was a shadow of its former self, but nevertheless, as Germany's fall...
Look at this. It's not, actually not funny at all, but I of course have seen and watched much of those videos and pictures, but I still can't believe it that my hometown Cologne looked this way in 1945. Cologne was one of the most heaviest hit city during the Second World War, and totally destroyed. And as far as I know, before the war, Cologne had about 700,000 inhabitants, but during the war many escaped from the city, and at the last weeks or months during the Second World War, there were just living maybe around 40,000 people in the city who were still in the city and lived in basements or in the ruins somewhere, or in like this. Totally unbelievable to see this. and to know, yes, this has been reality to the people back in the days.
Fourth largest city still represented an important Allied objective. Let's wind the clock back to 1945 and blend the wartime aerial over the modern satellite image to see the city as it was then. One key location is the impressive Cologne Cathedral, which even today dominates the metropolitan city centre, and conveniently for us, serves as both an orientation point and the American objective in the fight. It was in the shadow of this cathedral that the famous tank duel would take place. But to get there, we need to move westwards and back in time a little. By early March, US forces of the legendary Spearhead Division found themselves here on the outskirts of Cologne, having fought non-stop since Normandy. Leading the
Yes, and this is really weird too, because the Spearhead Division started...
Get there, we need to move westwards and back in time a little. By early March, US forces of the legendary Spearhead Division found themselves here on the outskirts of Cologne.
Yes, Pulheim is the town where I raised up. I've been born in Cologne. I was born in Cologne, but I lived maybe until my early 20s in Pulheim. It's a small town really at the edge of Cologne, at the northern western edge, but quite outside of the city border of Cologne, so it's not a Cologne district anymore. And yeah, from this little town that was way smaller than in the 40s, the Spearheads started their route to Cologne.
Having fought non-stop since...
It's super weird to see my Pulheim in a English-spoken YouTube video. It's just imagine you're from a very small town and you hear the name of your town mentioned in a video or on television. It's always maybe you know that weird feeling. Pulheim. Yeah, and I guess P-U-L, Pool. I guess the name goes back or means something like a big hole with water. So like the English word pool, what it means really, or originally. But this pool, this is not a modern German word anymore, but the original meaning is like maybe probably something like a hole with water, and Heim, the English version would be ham, pool ham. So the English name it would be Pulheim indeed. Yeah. Heim it's means something like home. Yeah.
Normandy. Leading the advance into the city were the tanks of Colonel Leander Doan's Task Force X, some 45 in total, but in this video we'll follow just 2. This Sherman 76, commanded by 26-year-old Wisconsin native Lieutenant Carl Kellner, and Eagle 7, a brand new Pershing tank commanded by Sergeant Bob Early. The Pershing in particular was important, weighing 46 tons with 100mm of frontal armour and a powerful 90mm gun. The 5-man tank was a big step up from the far more common Sherman, albeit a largely untested one in action. All that would soon change. But just why is this action unique in Second World War history? Well, it's thanks to these guys, a group of journalists, photographers and combat cameramen who were embedded within the leading elements as they advanced, meticulously capturing still images and footage along the way. Foremost amongst them was Staff Sergeant Jimmy Bates, Leon Rosenman and Fred Ramage, who, armed only with cameras, ran all the same risks as their armoured comrades. So what exactly were the Americans facing? In truth, it's hard to be precise. It was a chaotic time for the German army, but we do know that remnants of the badly mauled 363rd Volksgrenadier Division were emplaced in the area.
It's really interesting to see how they mixed the war footage, a map from the war, and where everything was destroyed, and merged it up with a modern map of Cologne. It's really cool, really amazingly made.
We also know that at least 3 German tanks from Panzer Brigade 106 were in the vicinity on the far side of the rail bridge and were to be thrown into the fight last minute.
Look how everything was destroyed there. Everything was, especially in the city center, as I already mentioned, up to 92% was in ruins. It's unbelievable.
In an attempt to stem the advancing American tide. The plan of attack was something like this. Units would push in on each flank of the city, sealing off any escape north or south, whilst at the same time a central column, led by the tanks of E and F companies of the 32nd Armoured Regiment, would attack from the northwest, driving into the heart of the city to capture the cathedral and hopefully the vital Hohenzollern Bridge over the Rhine. Our route in this video will follow this central advance. Let's get straight down to the ground, to the village of Pulheim, to pick up the story. We know that the Americans were here thanks to at least a few landmarks still standing.
We'll come to Pulheim, the town where I lived as a kid and teenager.
In the area, which can be traced today. It was here at about 10 AM on the 5th of March that cameraman Jim Bates captured footage of the American column advancing down this road.
Yeah, Pulheim was destroyed in the Second World War II, obviously. And maybe not the whole town or the village back in these days, but they also destroyed villages, especially those who had railways or trains, a train line, to make it impossible for the German Nazis to do the deliverings of new weapons and munition. And Pulheim has a train line, rails. And this is the area around this, near the station, I guess. This is a cemetery, I guess. Yeah, and I know that street quite well. Maybe not the angle or not but it's Pulheim, my hometown in the 40s, at the end of the war. It's amazing to see that.
At this time, all the tanks of Task Force X were advancing down the same route and met little resistance until they reached Cologne's suburbs.
That was really cool, mate. Really cool. I don't know how you say it in English. A transition, maybe. An Übergang. In German, Übergang. I guess transition in English.
At this time, all the tanks of Task Force X were advancing down the same route and met little resistance until they reached Cologne's suburbs. It was here that the infantry came into their own. Advancing with the armour, their role was to clear houses along their route.
This street I know really well, because this is not Pulheim, this is now a district in Cologne. And I'm walking this street maybe once a week. It's where I work sometimes as a freelancer in the street, and I can show a map. So this is Cologne, and Pulheim is here in the northwest of Cologne, and the Spearhead Division went this street called Fennorstraße to the first Cologne district called Bocklemünd here, and this street. I hope it's difficult. It's now here, the first Cologne street. And as I know from Cologne history, this part doesn't exist. In the 40s, it was built from the late 60s on. Yeah, and the Bocklemünd was the first Cologne district that the spearheads went through. And this is there. This is now Köln Bocklemünd, Cologne Bocklemünd.
Route of advance. It was a tough job, requiring GIs on the ground with plenty of guts to be first in the door. By mid-afternoon on the 5th of March, the wider part of the Venloer Strasse, a road leading directly to the city centre, was reached. This exact location we can identify on film today as it allows us a unique opportunity to follow these leading tanks. Here we see that Early's Eagle 7 is firing towards the old cemetery as they continue to clear a path eastwards. By the end of the day, the westernmost suburbs were cleared, and those famous twin spires of the cathedral were finally in sight, albeit some way off. It's likely that US forces held here for the night, regrouping and rearming for the much sterner test that was to follow. On the other side of the city, the Germans too were preparing. Late in the evening, a Panzermark IV arrived from southwest Germany at the eastern bank of the Rhine. After a hellish journey under continual air attack, 18-year-old gunner Gustav Schäfer was glad just to be alive, only to learn that...
Yeah, imagine you are just 18 years old and you are in the war. You're fighting in the war and you're leading a tank with just 18 years old, or being just 18 years. That's look at how young he looks, like a kid. He looks even younger than 18 years. That's unbelievable.
The following morning, he was to advance directly into Cologne. Let's take a moment to understand the situation on the morning of the 6th of March. It's likely at this time that the single group split and took two separate but parallel routes into the city. One, a group of 4 Shermans, led by Eagle 7, taking the Subbelratterstrasse, and a second group, including
the street Subbelratterstrasse is outside of my window. I actually am looking directly to the street when I look out of the window here in my sleeping room. It's amazing or weird to see that or hear that mentioned in a video.
Kellner's 76 and a 75mm armed Sherman continuing along the Venloer Strasse, the aim being for both groups to converge on the square in which the cathedral stood. It seems that the camera team split too, with Jim Bates and Leon Roseman following the group led by Early's Pershing, and another team including Clarence Garrell and Fred Ramage following the pair of Shermans along the second route. Only a few roads apart, the tanks would remain in radio contact throughout. Let's return to young Gustav Schäfer. Shortly before 10 AM, he recalled receiving the order to advance and describes what happened next.
We drove 3 tanks right over the Hohenzollern Bridge into the city. Once there, 2 tanks were immediately directed to...
Actually, a really nice recording of my hometown Cologne.
...to the central station. When we had crossed the bridge and the other 2 drove to the central station, an officer told us to drive further into the city. We then ran further westwards, passing the cathedral until we came to an intersection.
Now we know that by 10 AM on the 6th, at least 3 tanks, a Mark IV and likely 2 Panthers, advanced into the ruins of Cologne. Commanding one of the Panthers that day was Oberleutnant Wilhelm Bartelbohr, an experienced tank commander holding the Iron Cross first and second class. He was to take up position, as per orders, of course unknown to the advancing Americans, in a tunnel just northeast of the cathedral. Returning now though to the Pershing group, accompanied by cameraman Bates, they also advanced directly towards the Mark IV, commanded by Oberfeldwebel Rolf Militzer, with Schäfer at the gun sight. The nerves were incredible on both sides. As the 2 tanks cautiously closed distance, slowly feeling their way through the rubble-filled streets, a civilian vehicle, driven by local grocer Michael Delling, with his employee 27-year-old Katharina Esser in the passenger seat, came racing into view. Apparently trying to escape the approaching firefight in the almost deserted city, they unknowingly drove straight between Early's and Militzer's tanks, with tragic results. Tense with nerves and unsure who occupied the car, both Clarence Smoyer, the gunner in the Pershing, and Schäfer in the Mark IV opened up. Riddled by machine gun fire, the Opel slewed to a stop, with Delling dead at the wheel and young Katharina Esser mortally wounded beside him.
Yeah, I know this scene from other footage. They indeed just drove through the shootings because both tanks, the American tank and the German tank, were standing there and already were shooting each other, and the car just drove through the shooting. Actually, a really dangerous, weird thing to do, and the car got hit by one of the both tanks. So really sad story. But no one understands why did they drive through the shooting.
As is often the case in the fog of war, civilians find themselves caught in the crossfire. Everyone else in Cologne that day would have been shaken by an enormous explosion moments later as the Hohenzollern rail bridge, the last possible lifeline for the German armour in Cologne, was blown up by German pioneers. There was now no way out. It would be a fight to the end. With each tank now alerted to the presence of the other by tracer fire, Smoyer caught sight of the Mark IV as it hastily reversed behind a building. Now out of sight, but its location known, Smoyer decided on a new course of action and repeatedly slammed armour-piercing rounds into the 5-storey building directly in front of the enemy tank. The resulting debris, which collapsed onto the Panzer, blocked its turret from rotating. Surrounded, outgunned and demoralised by the blowing of the bridge and the damage to their tank, Sergeant Militzer and Gustav Schaefer had finally had enough. They exited the tank, running down this road and into a side street before taking shelter in a nearby hotel basement. Apparently determined to fight on, the remaining 3 crews stayed in the damaged tank and from here disappear from the pages of history. With the path now clear, the Pershing cautiously began to advance towards the cathedral with infantry and camera team in tow. By shortly after midday, we've left the left advance at least clear for some distance, with the Pershing leading and firing as it moved. On the right though, things were so far looking quieter. Both Kellner's and the accompanying Sherman, working as a pair, had reached about this point, identifiable clearly today by the remains of this Roman tower. By matching our
Another very cool transition again. And yeah, if you wonder what this thing is, it's a Roman tower and indeed made or created by the Romans, maybe in the 2nd or 3rd century. It was part of the Roman wall. And yeah, here the northern wall and the western wall came together and had an observation tower. So, but it's original and it's obviously survived the war, luckily. And yeah, it's original Roman because maybe you know, Cologne is one of the German cities who was founded by the Romans 2,000 years ago. And yeah, the Roman tower still exists. The whole Roman wall doesn't exist anymore, only pieces of it and this tower.
On the ground view, with the footage of that day, we can see the same point and the way in which the tanks advanced. All seemed to go well until, emerging onto this street, just a few hundred metres from the foot of the cathedral, a series of destroyed buildings blocked any further advance. Watching on with his camera in hand was Clarence Garrell and British photographer Fred Ramage. Having called in a specialist Sherman bulldozer to clear the route, the crews were waiting, with Garrell slightly to the left rear of the second Sherman. Garrell now pointed his camera directly down the street at a darker area amongst the rubble.
1 second, I can show you the exactly spot where we are now. It's here, this is the city center, and we are. Maybe I can zoom in, but 1 second. Now this is too. Oh, maybe I can find it here. It's quite difficult to zoom because it zooms way too much then. And, this is the street now, Komödienstraße. And St. Andreas or St. Andrew is the church on the left side that you would be here on the left side. That you can see the church, but this street was full of rubble, so they couldn't pass anymore. And the cathedral is this big place here. So, and we are now very close to the cathedral. Komödienstraße. Sounds like comedy street. I don't know what's the history of the street name. That's actually a really weird name, and I did never thought about this. What's the background, the history of that street name? Komödienstraße, Comedy Street. Maybe they had a comedy theater there once, but I don't know. So actually a very good question.
He wasn't to know it, but hidden here in the railway tunnel was Bartelbort's Panther. Seconds later, a 75mm armour-piercing shell slammed into the gun shield of Kellner's Sherman, tearing through its armour and probably killing driver Julian Patrick and assistant gunner Curtis Spear outright. About 7 seconds later, a second shell hit the Sherman, and as Garrel continued to film, Lieutenant Kellner and Corporal John Gianluca emerged from the smoking turret, with Kellner's left leg clearly having been lost in the explosion. Gravely wounded, Kellner made it just a few yards behind the tank before collapsing. Tragically, he would die a short time later and is today buried in his hometown of Sheboygan, Wisconsin. He was just 26 years old. Shocked by what they'd seen and unaware of the enemy tank's location, the crew of the second Sherman began to reverse to cover behind a rubble pile when it too was hit, this time in the...
I can show it again on the map. So the American tank who was hit was standing here next to the little church called St. Andreas, and the German tank who hit the American tank was standing maybe a bit, this is the cathedral here, in German called Kölner Dom, the Cologne Cathedral. And very close to it is the central station, Köln Hauptbahnhof, Cologne Central Station. And here's a little, I don't know how you call it in English, a subway or the ways go are elevated there and maybe 6 meters high. And the tank probably was hidden here under the rails. It was a bit dark, and everything here was full of rubble, a big pile of rubble. So the Americans didn't see the German tank who was standing here and did a first shot, and then he came closer to the Americans and was standing here at this intersection. But this we will see now, maybe in the next minutes.
The right track by the concealed Panther, with its crew abandoning, though powerfully, rather than fleeing the area. Several crew members ran to the aid of Kellner, the moment being captured by Fred Ramage's photograph, which later appeared in Life magazine. In the space of less than a minute, two Shermans had been knocked out by an unseen foe, and 3 men had lost their lives.
Unbelievable to see here. And here he's escaping from the tank and just died a few minutes later, lying here.
But where exactly was this enemy tank? Today we know from a letter written by Bartelborth himself that the Panther had taken up position beneath this bridge, close to the railway station, and it was from here that they had spotted and hit the 2 Shermans. Taking the distance from the known points and the visibility along the street, which, by the way, is much wider today than it was in 1945, we can calculate that the shots were fired from this exact location at a distance of some 340 metres. We know from Clarence Smoyer that a few minutes later, F Company's commander contacted the commander of E Company, who in turn contacted Early, informing him of what had happened and asking him to go down and take out that tank. Now, aware of the very present danger somewhere along his route of advance, Early decided to get a better look from something like safety before risking his tank. Entering this building through these lower windows, he climbed the stairway to a mezzanine along with Jim Bates. In the meantime, the Panther had finally broken cover and moved forward some 100 metres to take up a new position right here. Covering 3 lines of approach to the cathedral, to the left, centre and right, it could command the area, but was also now far more exposed. Electing to face its strong frontal armour directly forwards towards the knocked out Shermans, Bartelborth seems at that time to have been unaware that the powerful Pershing was actually much closer and off to his right. Let's take a moment to understand the situation at this critical time. So, Bates and his camera, along with Early, have climbed one set of stairs to get a view out of a window on the end of this building. The Pershing, minus its commander for the moment, is stationary here, and a few meters to the rear and filming up the street is Rosenmann. The Panther itself?
I'm really sure, I know it, that this view is from one of the towers, maybe from the left tower of the Cologne Cathedral. It's amazing to see that.
Facing towards the two knocked out Shermans is approximately here. It was just after 2 p.m. when Bates, photographer Jim Hines, and Early reached this window, and standing well back into the room to avoid being seen, spotted the Panther side on, some 120 meters away.
Wow!
Bates later recalled his
another great transition. No, but please, 1 second. I want to be sure if this is the right word. Übergang. Transition, yeah, it was right. Yeah, transition. And here at this corner, maybe we can see it. It's today, or since the 80s, a McDonald's inside.
Photographer Jim Hines and Early reached this window, and standing well back into...
This is McDonald's, McDonald's restaurant. So we are now still, it's this crossing, this intersection. Marzellenstraße, Komödienstraße.
The room to avoid being seen, spotted the Panther side on, some 120 meters away. Bates later recalled his conversation with Early.
He told me to stay there and he would come back in his tank and try to put the German tank out of commission and I could photograph it. He had one of the new M26 Pershings with a 90mm gun. Sergeant Early said he would turn into the square under me, stop and fire at the German tank.
Returning to Eagle 7 and briefing the crew as to what they should expect, they fired up the 500 horsepower Ford V8 and began to advance. Smoyer, a well-trusted member of the crew, had been told not to wait for an order but to fire as soon as he got a shot, hoping at this range that the Pershing's powerful gun would knock out the Panther with a single shot. Inside the Panther, Bartelborth, faced with 3 possible routes of advance, made a decision, ordering his gunner to traverse to the right, possibly having heard the engine of the approaching Pershing. Life and death for both crews was now down to a matter of only milliseconds. As the range closed and the Pershing cleared the corner building, Bates, having moved up 1 floor to get a better view and with Rosenmann in the street, began to roll. Hesitation was the deciding factor. As Bartelborth and his gunner peered through the dust at the first signs of the emerging Pershing, he reportedly called, "Don't shoot!" Knowing that Schaefer's Mark IV was in the same vicinity and apparently not recognising the silhouette of the Pershing, hitherto unseen on the battlefield, he believed it may have been one of his own tanks. By the time he realised his mistake, it was too late. The Pershing had cleared the corner and without stopping slammed around from only 110 metres directly into the side of the Panther. Jolted by the explosion and likely in fear for his own safety, Bates had ducked at the moment of firing and missed the first impact. But Rosenmann to the rear filmed the Pershing's shot. Bates rose again, just a few seconds later, capturing the second round smashing into the Panther's side armour and kept filming as smoke began to billow out. Knowing that further rounds were surely coming, Bartelborth was already abandoning his tank, with his crew following after. The famous Cologne tank duel was over. But what became of this crew?
Wow, what heavy war scenes. And as far as I know, this is the best documented tank duel from the Second World War. I've read that fact a few times, so it's probably true. Or do you know another tank duels from the Second World War with such close recordings? It's really amazing to watch, or unbelievable to watch. But as far as I know, I don't know if he mentioned it, but they all survived here. From the German tank, they all escaped and run away. As far as I know, pretty sure.
Captured on film as they fled their burning tank. A detailed look at Bates' 16-second film clip, slowed down and stabilized, when combined with the outstanding work of German historian Dirk Lubka, allows us to try and piece together the sequence of events. The first clear frames in the Bates sequence show the turret cupola hatch opened and a crewman, presumably Bartelborth himself, standing up. We also see the impact hole of the first shell on the Panther's side.
Wow.
For the next 4 seconds, the tank commander struggles to roll onto the Panther's front deck before dropping to the ground. The next frames show the tank commander running for cover and the radio operator still emerging from his hatch at the front right of the tank and also diving off the front deck. As he disappears, the gunner begins to emerge from the same cupola hatch which the commander exited. Finally, the driver emerges from his hatch at the front left, about the same time as Smoyer's second round strikes the tank, very likely killing the gunner, who is yet to exit. Over the total sequence, we see 4 of the 5-man crew in view, with surviving records suggesting that Bartelborth, driver Koenig, and 1 other man were later taken prisoner. A 4th unknown man died of his wounds after escaping the tank, and a 5th was likely killed in action.
Okay.
Bates' footage is truly powerful. It was then, and it is now. A snapshot of a moment in time which affected all of those concerned for the rest of their lives. Clarence Smoyer was no different. He reflected years later.
I never went to that tank and looked inside, but they told me all of the crew perished there. I thought about it many, many times. When we were firing, I don't remember seeing them getting out. It always did bother me that they all had to die. I'm happy that some of them did survive. Very happy.
Immediately following those actions, the Pershing reversed, stopping outside this building some 100 meters away. Leaving their position in the upstairs window, Bates and Rosenman emerged onto the street to join them. It was here that this famous scene was captured, showing the crew of Eagle 7, no doubt simply glad to be alive. The battle for Cologne was over. Bob Early, Clarence Smoyer, and the men of 3rd Armoured eventually went home, as did Gustav Schaefer, Wilhelm Bartelborth. Many of their comrades didn't. Smoyer himself never forgot that day at the cathedral, and returned several times after the war to visit the spot from where he...
Yeah. Well, it's amazing to see how it looks today. I know that place, of course. I know it really good. And yeah, it's we are still here. This is here. What's the English word? Roundabout. Wait, 1 second. Oops. Up. Hoppla. My sound box just fall down from the desktop. Kreisverkehr. Well, a roundabout, yes. So this is this one. And here's the second American tank with Clarence Smoyer, who came from the left and gave a shoot and hit the German tank here. And the cameraman was recording the whole scene from this building here inside. Maybe from the 2nd level or 3rd level.
He fired those famous shots. On one trip in 2013, he met Gustav Schaefer, whom he had last seen through his gun sight 68 years before. They got on well and left as friends.
But both are dead now. Since a few years. Yeah, but what amazing video. Thanks to Battle Guide. This video is really, really interesting to watch. So please give this video a thumb up because they did a great job. Big owl both thumbs up for this great video. Really, really well done. Yeah. This heavy to see, heavy to watch still. When I watched this video and the original footage since maybe 5 years over and over again. And I also have this book here that you can order, Spearhead. It's written by an American journalist who also had many interviews with the tank gunner Clarence Moyer. But yeah, they are all dead now. It's unbelievable to think. But it's a great book, so you can order it. I will put the link to Amazon in the video description down below. Yeah, that's for it now. I hope you liked my reaction video, even when this was really quite heavy to watch. But it's really still interesting, or I think important to watch those war scenes and to hope that this will not repeat anymore or will happen again. Hopefully never. And yeah, I could also talk much more about the time, but this would be then too long. Maybe I can do a second part or another part if you are interested. Maybe I could do a walking video where I walk through the streets. Maybe if you would like to see that, and to do comparisons to the original footage from the American cameraman. And yeah, all right. Thank you for watching. Please give this video a thumb up and please subscribe to my channel. And hope to see you again in the next video. Goodbye und auf Wiedersehen.